It is 2:00 in the morning on Friday the 19th of September, 2014. This is an interview for OBSKÜRE magazine, issue number 23, and the questions are by Monsieur Tassi. Question number 1. You explain in your official site that Mitternacht and Poetica work very well together and are related. It reminds me of what you had said to me when Poetica was released. The fact that the album was your Poe, your connection to Poe. Is Mitternacht related to Poetica because it is particularly autobiographical? Yes, I think that Poetica and Mitternacht do belong together. Well, at least to a certain degree. And yes, Mitternacht is autobiographical. But then again, so are all my albums. I've always written only about myself. I've never done anything else. I mean, keep in mind that Super is nothing but self-therapy. It's always been. And besides, what's the one thing that all aspiring writers are being told? Is to bloody stick to the things that you know. And, well, in my case, the only thing that I truly know and understand, well, sort of anyway, is myself. So, yes, all my work is entirely autobiographical, including Mitternacht. I think another reason why both albums kind of belong together, well, they may not belong, but certainly work well together, is because one followed so closely after the other. I've said this before, but every album is not only a consequence of the one that came before, but it's also a preparation for the ones to follow. The thing about Mitternacht, about Poetica was, well, is, that it ended on a very sad note, and I couldn't leave it like that. In a depression, maybe kind of romantic at the age of 16, in a twisted sort of way. But even it isn't anymore when you reach my age. To tell you the truth, I was terrified. It's like I was really afraid. I could not leave it like this. I could not let this final note linger, echo for all eternity, without dissolving it, rechanneling it. Because I just couldn't go on like this anymore. I could not allow this to be, because well, I felt, I feared that it would be the end of me. I had to find a solution quickly, which might also explain why I was under such enormous pressure. Consequently, this album was, and still is, so very important to me. In fact, and that's perhaps a strange thing to say, considering the contents of my past albums. But I can't remember ever having felt such a feeling of urgency about an album. Or maybe I have and I just forgot about it, which I tend to do, so. And now I'm repeating myself, but in my case, there is no separation between life and art. And I believe that's true for every artist, or every true artist, regardless of talent or skill. And really there shouldn't be a separation. I mean, how can there be? Life and art are one, they're the same thing. They influence each other, they are forever intertwined, because they are the same thing. So as I try to find a solution to my situation, I encountered something that caused even greater pain. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, I was hoping to change things for the better, but it only got worse. I hadn't felt so extremely miserable in a long time. I mean, there were days when I was fucking crying on my way home. I mean, broad daylight. And those were the good days. It's like on others, I couldn't even get out of bed. But it was necessary. Again, this may sound strange to some people, but I'm eternally grateful for this. I learned things that not only had never encountered before, but I thought were impossible. Yes, it was painful, but it was also interesting and very educational. Question number 2. Can you explain the fact that you needed to explore the question of loneliness and the need for companionship at this moment in your life? No. Things just, happened. It was meant to happen. It was simply time, I guess. A natural consequence of the things that had happened before. I don't wish to be rude, but I really cannot be more specific. After all, the details are really nobody's business. It's just, when I left the other side, to put it this way, to re-enter the ordinary world, which I had abandoned so many years ago, I was instantly reminded why I left in the first place. I didn't belong here. I had no part in this, no place in it. It's one thing to be alone on the other side, where there are creatures, things you can surround yourself with, or even create to a certain extent. But being alone in the hostile, ordinary world, that's different. I cannot recommend it. So my first reaction was to turn around on the spot and go straight back into darkness. But I couldn't. Not this time. Because they wouldn't have solved anything. It would have only meant stagnation and ultimately death. So I kept on walking. And that was almost 2 years ago now. And it's kind of, I hate the word amazing. I really do. But looking at it now, it's the best way to describe it. The things that happened in those 2 years. I honestly would never have guessed could happen. I really thought it would never be possible. Number 3. Where did the idea to record a cover version of La Prima Vez come from? Oh, the idea? I don't know. It just developed. As it is with art, it grows. But what I can tell you is where I encountered the song for the first time. I was watching Wim Wenders' dance film Pina, and on the soundtrack there's a version of that song by God, what's his name? Logan 5. No, wait, Owen 5, Owen 5 Owen Fifi, God, I don't know, whatever his name is pronounced. I've never heard it before, but I immediately liked it, because it had a beautiful melody, and that's what drew me to it. That's what caught my attention. And as is often the case with these things, sometimes you may not necessarily know what it is at first. The thing that attracts your attention. Quite often it's entirely subconscious, but once you take a closer look at it, you see what connects you to it. You see the relevance it has for you. Number 4. I have to ask you the same question for Bang Bang. Why did you choose this song? Oh, to be perfectly honest, I cannot remember. I really can't remember what gave the impulse. And that's actually a good thing, because it means that the problem, or the inner conflict, if you wish, has been solved. Dissolved. It's a strange song to begin with, silly even, in the original. I mean, it was written by Sonny Bono. But for whom exactly, I don't even know. Either Nancy Sinatra or Cher. I don't know who came first. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. Both versions are great. Actually, Cher has many great songs. I mean, Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves is fabulous. But of course I cannot do that. I mean, for one, the music kind of sounds like soul anyway, to a certain degree, so that would be pointless. And well, let's face it, I wasn't born on the wagon of a travelling show. Oh, thank goodness for that. But back to Bang Bang. Yeah, it's a strange song, and in my case, it doesn't just refer to one particular thing or person, and it keeps changing perspective. It's more about a state of mind, if you wish, a neurotic notion, a dependency, that sort of thing I dealt with on the Triptych of Ghosts. The interesting thing for me, however, was that I initially thought I would, well, I mean, not mock it, but be kind of ironic about it, basically like I did with Bonnie Tyler's Holding Out for a Hero. But when I was in the studio, I couldn't do it like that. I had to do it seriously. It was the only way. And it makes sense, because there is no irony on the album at all. And that's actually a thing that Mitternacht has in common with Poetica. Number 5. Do you consider Confessional the heart of the album? We can understand the chorus, the mantra of the song, in a lot of different ways. Is that a form of supplication? Yes, it is the heart of the album, and thank you for recognizing. And yes, you may very well call it a prayer. Number 6 is the album title Mitternacht, a reference to the heart of the night, the symbol of the moments when the feelings of loneliness are at its strongest. Yes, it's like a dark night of the soul. Number 7. When you sing beautiful, do you think about someone in particular? Well, sorry about that, I cannot tell you. Well, it is more than meets the eye. It's a little complex, more complex than it might appear at first glance. Because it seems to be very simple, and it is simple, but it's not one-dimensional. But, well, never mind that. Number 8. You sing in a totally new way on certain songs, like on You Cannot Make Him Love You, for example. Could you tell me more about this experience of the voice recordings of Mitternacht? No, there's nothing to tell, really. Recording the vocals, it was the same as always. I mean, you're in the studio and then you do it. If it sounds different than how I usually sound, which I don't think it does, it's because the song or the content demanded it. Number 9. Do you think the quiet feeling of the album is due to the totally new way that you had to deal with your energy, as you explained on your homepage? No, it has nothing to do with that. Because I don't write the music in the studio. So when I go to the studio, as in when I rent studio time, it means that the music's already completed. Well, in theory, because, well, it obviously still needs to be recorded, but the writing is done. Though, admittedly, it's not written in stone. And there's always room for, well, chance. Fate, you might even call it. Sometimes things fall into place. And, well, there are the vocals, of course. I never know in advance what's going to happen there, because, as you know, there are no rehearsals. Would you say... Oh, question number 10. Would you say that the album is quiet because you're in a quieter moment in your life? Perhaps, yes. Number 11. Music box and theremin have become an essential part of your music. How would you explain this? Now, I feel that those instruments are supertenors. Yes, they are, aren't they? I agree. Well, I've talked about the theremin, or the theremin-inspired sound, before. Oops, sorry. As it being this beautiful bridge between the cold synthesizers and the warm violins. And yes, there's this quirky, childlike thing about the music box and all those percussive pling-plong instruments that keep haunting my albums, like the toy piano, for example, which happens to be right behind me. Where it is there. Now I've lost the plot. What was I going to say? Oh, right, toy piano. Well, when the album was recorded, it sort of slowly dawned on me that the damn toy piano was in every bloody song. Well, at least on the first half of the album. And admittedly, I did worry for a second, thinking, have I perhaps overused this? But, well, there was nothing to be done about it, because that's how it was. It had to be. But, yeah, I always worry. I can't help that. Number 12. Oh, the final question. That was quick. Is the perspective of releasing Mitternacht harder than it was with the previous albums? You explained on your homepage that it has to be done, but the sharing of this work seems particularly delicate for you. Why? Because of... well, you have to understand that what you hear when you listen to a super album is not what I hear. Remember that the music is like a byproduct, a waste product almost, of a psycho-spiritual process and of magical work. What you get is only the end product. Meaning when you listen to a super album, you only hear the quote-unquote stories, whereas when I listen to it, I see and relive all the events that have led to this album. So what I'm trying to say is, it may very well be that what you hear is just a nice collection of singles with lyrics that may not necessarily make any sense. Whereas for me, who has all the keys to its its symptoms, to all its symbols, it's incredibly intimate and revealing. Like I feel naked and vulnerable. Why does it seem more delicate to me this time than with the previous albums? Well, probably because I actually was naked and wounded.